Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be solving LeetCode 1021, remove outermost parentheses. Now, I'm not going to read this entire thing to you. You can do that on your own time, but essentially what they want us to do is we're given a valid parentheses string, and this parentheses string contains nested parentheses. So we can see here that there are two valid parentheses nested inside one parentheses string. What they want us to do is remove these outermost values. Now, how can we do that? We can use 2 pointers and some counters to do this. So let's say left will be 0, right will also be 0, and we want to keep track of how many opening and closing brackets there are. So we'll say O will start as 0 for opening, C will start as 0 for closing, and we do want to return a string join. So we'll create an array, and whenever we find one of these valid parentheses strings, we will just append the inner nested parentheses to our array, and then at the end we can just return the string join. So let's do that. We'll say while our right pointer is less than the length of our input string, while right is less than the length of our input string, what are we going to check? We are going to check if the character at our right pointer in our input string is an opening character. We increment the opening counter by 1, and we'll do the same for the closing counter as well. So we'll say if s of right is equal to an opening bracket, we will say O plus equals 1. Else we will say closing plus equals 1. Now, how do we determine if we have run into a valid parentheses string? Well, that's what these counters are for. If the counters are equal to each other, that means we have found a valid parenthesis, right? So if we have one opening and one closing, we have a valid parenthesis. So we need to check if opening is equal to closing, and because we don't want to check if they're equal to 0, right? That means we don't have anything within our string. So we'll say and O is not equal to 0. You could say C2, it does the exact same thing. What are we going to do? We just want to take that valid parentheses string, strip the edges off, and append it to our array. How can we do that? We can just say array.append s of left plus 1, right? So if left is right here, we just want the innermost parentheses. So we'll increment left by 1, and then go all the way up to, but not including our right pointer. That will give us our inner nested parentheses, all the way up to our right pointer. And then what are we going to do? Well, we've already taken what we've needed from that portion of our input string. So if right is pointing here and left is currently here, how do we move it? Well, we can just say left will now be equal to right plus 1, because we don't want to have to double count right. So we'll say left is equal to right plus 1, and then at the end, after we do all these checks, we still have to increment right by 1 so we can move on through our input string. And then at the end, we will have an array containing our nested parentheses, so we can just return the string join of our array. Let's get rid of some of these spaces here. We'll run, pass all 3 test cases, submit, and we do pass. So let's go back to the description. So what is the time complexity of this problem? Well, we're running a while loop until we reach the end of our input string, and there's nothing nested in here, so that is going to give us a time complexity of O of n. Space complexity is going to be whatever the length of our array is that we're building to return our valid parenthesis string. So we can just say it's going to be O of whatever the length of our array is. And yep, we don't have any other data structures in here, so that'll do it for LeetCode 1021.